Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the new live-action remake of The Little Mermaid. This movie is directed by Rob Marshall, who's most known for his films Annie, Into the Woods, Mary Poppins Returns, Chicago, and more. I've always been a fan of the original Little Mermaid, so I wanted to see how this movie did in comparison. Even though most of us know it, the synopsis is as follows. The youngest of King Triton's daughters, Ariel is a beautiful and spirited young mermaid with a thirst for adventure. Longing to find out more about the world beyond the sea, Ariel visits the surface and falls for the dashing Prince Eric. Following her heart, she makes a deal with the evil sea witch, Ursula, to experience life on land. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. The plot of this movie was okay. It follows pretty closely to the original telling of The Little Mermaid. In this movie, it just seemed really bloated and convoluted, and I was really wondering why that was until I saw the runtime. The original Little Mermaid is an hour and 23 minutes long. Rob Marshall's Little Mermaid is 2 hours and 15 minutes. So you're talking about almost an added hour of runtime when you're telling effectively the same story. And honestly, it was just a bunch of fluff that made this movie feel inflated, convoluted, and at times boring. And because of that, what should have been a fun retelling of a classic story ended up feeling like another really weak remake that leaves us all wondering why it even got made in the first place. So for me, plot gets a 50-50. 2 is family friendliness. The Little Mermaid is rated PG. There's no profanity to be seen, but there are a couple scenes that have a little bit of intensity to them, including one where Ursula is putting a potion together, and there are a couple deaths. But just like the classic, this movie is pretty tame. So for me, family friendliness gets a thumbs up. 3 is acting and script. Look, I know there was a lot of hubbub surrounding the casting of Halle Bailey as Ariel, but other than my ongoing theory that Hollywood hates casting redheads in their actual roles, I'm going to stay unbiased. First and foremost, Halle Bailey is an incredible vocalist. Her acting performance was pretty good, but her vocals in this movie were excellent. So that part of the movie was enjoyable. Jonah Hauer-King did a great job playing Prince Eric, and though I was concerned, Melissa McCarthy did a good job playing Ursula as well. But the script of this movie... To me, the only funny character in this movie was Sebastian, and so they gave Daveed Diggs a couple funny lines. But there were so many moments in this movie where I was just like, okay, why are we even talking about this? Why was this extra song included? One of the songs you got to see Jonah's voice be put on display, and that was impressive. He's a great vocalist as well. But when it came to Awkwafina as Scuttle, I found myself cringing and just wanting every interaction she was a part of to be over. And it honestly just came across really annoying. There's a handful of other interactions in this movie that just aren't very strong. So because of that, I had to give acting and script a 50-50. 4 is character development. Though you get decent character development between Ariel and King Triton, it's not as strong as I really hoped that it could be. I guess I thought if you're going to add an extra hour to the original story of this movie, you might want to focus more on character development. But honestly, it feels the same, if not just slightly less character development than you got in the original cartoon. You do get to understand Ariel's desires and wishes and interests, and they do a pretty good job of showing that, so I give props to them. And you get some decent character development with Prince Eric as well. But on the other hand, the character development between Ariel and Prince Eric was decent, but again, I don't think it was the best that it could have been. Ursula is absent for half of this movie. It almost made her feel like a distracted subplot. And unfortunately, she doesn't get really any character development, which would have been another really interesting dynamic to have in a movie that's an hour longer than the original. So while this movie didn't mess up Ariel's character development, they just didn't put in a lot of effort anywhere else, and it showed. So for me, character development gets 50-50. 6 is visuals and CGI.
5.
One of the strongest things about this movie is the visuals and CGI. It's very colorful, very visually entertaining, and while obviously there's a bunch of CGI involved, nothing about this movie really pulled you out of it. I will say there was one moment that pulled me out of the movie that made me laugh quite a bit, and that was because near the end of the movie there was this absolutely shredded mermaid that I hadn't seen the whole film, and I was like, who is that guy? Prince Eric has got some serious competition over there. Other than that, the visuals and CGI in this movie were great, and they were probably the most entertaining part, besides Ariel's voice, of course. So for me, visuals and CGI get a thumbs up. And 6 is rewatchability.
5. I got it.
Like I mentioned before, this retelling of The Little Mermaid is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and because of the way they spent that extra time that they added, this movie felt way too long. It really seemed like they put all that extra time into the wrong places, and it just made this movie feel even longer than it was. So for me, unfortunately, because of the runtime and the way they chose to inflate the story so much, this movie's not really rewatchable, and I honestly would prefer the original. So for me, rewatchability gets a 50-50. With all these areas considered, I have to give The Little Mermaid a 5.5 out of 10. This movie had incredible vocal performances, some stunning visuals and CGI, and a talented cast of actors and actresses that fit the roles they played pretty well. But this movie had an insanely bloated runtime, characters that were funny and lovable in the original but really annoying in this one, and lack of overall character development, which led this film to seem really long, really distracted, and made it feel like Ursula was just a distracted subplot of the movie. I was really excited for this movie, and I hoped that it was going to be more than what it ended up being. But honestly, after watching it, it felt a lot like Peter Pan and Wendy, where I think honestly it should have just been released straight to Disney+. So with all that in mind, The Little Mermaid is a movie that you can bring your kids to and feel safe doing so. But if you're wanting to go see the movie yourself because you liked the original, I don't really think it's worth going to see in theaters. I think you're better off waiting until it comes out in Disney Plus in a couple months. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen The Little Mermaid, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.